Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
Bada bing, bada boom. We're rolling. It's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple guys hanging out, sipping on some whiskey, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. Tonight, if I'm doing my math right, is episode 35. Been rolling strong since, I don't know, June, whenever the heck it was. Tonight, basically, we're going to do Name That Stadium like we always do. Then we're going to hit the news from this past week, which there was quite a bit of it. I'm sure we're probably going to miss a thing or two, but we'll do the best we can. And then after that, we're going to wrap up our free agency matchmaker segment. So last week we did the AFC teams. Tonight we'll hit the NFC teams, and then we'll close it off with our question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's good, man. It's good. It's been a scramble of a week, but I'm glad Friday night is here. And yeah, dude, I'm just pumped up to be talking about some football.
Yeah, really.
All right, well, hey, let's do Name That Stadium. So, this is our part of the show for anybody who's watching. Basically, we explain, as you can see, James is out there traveling the country. Every Friday, he puts a different stadium in his background. And basically, we're asking our viewers, take a shot at guessing that stadium. If you think you know which one it is, pop your answer in our comments section. And if you're the first person to get it right, we'll give you a special shout out in next week's show. And so, James, why don't you tell us where you were at last week and, what inspiration, if any, for making that selection for last week's pick?
So last week I was at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. The reason I picked New England as the stadium is because as I was reading everything, I was starting to sense that there was going to be some bigger QB news coming from New England.
Okay.
Um, I didn't think it was the news that was going to come out. I was thinking there was going to be a trade or something, but then of course this morning they re-signed Cam Newton, and so I got it right. I just got the thought on what I thought was going to happen wrong because I was thinking they were going to go hard after Garoppolo in San Francisco.
I gotcha. Yeah, so they still did something with the quarterback, but not as exciting as what you were hoping for or expected.
Exactly. Exactly.
Gotcha. Well, we'll I guess if you're good on Name That Stadium, we'll kick it over to the news from the week, and I guess we could just pick up on that because I did have a couple notes on the Cam Newton signing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm good to go on to the Cam Newton signs. I have a couple thoughts on it too.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, so that's Name That Stadium. And now we're doing our recap from this past week. And yeah, James, so like you, I saw that they re-signed Cam Newton. And I was actually just reading a few minutes ago that it could be up to like 13 or 13.5 million, something in that ballpark. Um, not horrible if he ends up being their starting quarterback, but to me, it just seems like a bad move when you look at how things played out for them last year. Uh, you know, it I think it only works if he's a veteran bridge quarterback where maybe they still make a trade and draft a guy and they need Cam to kind of play it out for a year while the rookie gets his feet under him. I mean, we just saw it that the run first approach does not work for the Patriots. And they're probably losing some guys on that offensive line. I know they just made that trade for Trent Brown, getting him back. The defense is probably going to be a little bit better if they, play their cards right. But I don't know. I mean, what does that equate to? Maybe a couple extra wins, and even then, you're talking maybe not making the playoffs. And so I don't know. I just don't see Cam getting that much better than last year. And so to me, it just seems like foolish move. I would even trade for a guy like Nick Foles, man. I think he would have played better in the Josh McDaniels system than Cam Newton. And I think that's what it comes down to is they know that that system works. It worked for years with Brady, but you need the kind of quarterback to fit into that system, and it's just not Cam.
So I th well, from what I understand of the contract, it's like very incentive laden,
Yeah.
and it's like somewhere between 5 and 8 million for the year, if none of the incentives are made. It's like, Pro Bowl, Super Bowl, playoffs,
Okay.
stuff like starter, stuff like that. So one of the things New England had to make this move. They had to re-sign Cam Newton, because when you're bringing in like Hunter Henry to try to sign him, or you're bringing in a wide receiver, the first question they're going to ask
Yeah,
is
who's throwing to
who's
me?
throwing the
Yeah,
ball, and
that's a
you
good
you
point.
can't point to the open chair.
Hmm.
If you have to at least have some sort of a plan at quarterback. So it's like, okay, we have Cam Newton, and we're thinking we might, maybe it's Cam Newton, but at least they can fall back on Cam Newton. They can always improve the position, but the worst is
Yeah.
going to be Cam Newton. Um, Last year they had no offensive weapons, so that's why they tried to go with the run first approach. The reason why Cam Newton had so many interceptions and so few TD passes is because nobody got open.
Yeah.
Edelman was hurt, and outside of that, you had N'Keal Harry or whatever his
Hmm.
name is, and
Hmm.
I mean, who else do you have to throw the ball? Nobody. Throw the ball to nobody. So there's there are issues with that. New England has a lot of cap space to bring in big name wide receivers, bring in like the Kenny Galladay, because Kenny Galladay is not gonna even consider New England if they don't have a quarterback on the roster, or if Stidham's the quarterback on the roster. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, all these guys aren't going to consider New England without at least a serviceable quarterback on the roster.
I gotcha, and I like that assessment. Yeah, so basically, it's all about messaging for the free agents out there that it's like, hey, listen, you're getting Cam Newton plus. Maybe we get somebody better, but he's the floor that you're going to have throwing to you. I don't know. To me, if I'm a free agent, wide receiver, tight end, I'm probably not all that thrilled about Cam Newton throwing me the ball, but I guess it's you combine that with whatever money they're willing to pay, and the Patriots pedigree over all these years, and I guess you can kind of like package it up and say, okay, it's worth considering at least.
Yeah, and also Cam Newton is a better answer than Stidham.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And Stidham, he had some moments, but yeah, last year, what the heck happened? I don't know. So, all right, so enough of that. Let's talk another quarterback. This is like old news at this point, but Dak got his contract finally, and I know you were all over it when it happened. Why don't you give us the rundown of that?
So I forget the number. It's like 160 million with like 126 guaranteed. I hate what I'm seeing in the NFL. Like it's okay. So we're gonna
All the voidable years?
sign
Yeah.
you to a 6 year extension, but it's really 4 years, so we can spread the number out over the signing bonus over 6 years. It's like for this coming year, Dak is getting $75 million cash,
Yeah, that's crazy.
but he's only counting $22 million against the cap.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit last week that all these kind of like salary cap manipulation type strategies, it's rubbing me the wrong way that the NFL's getting to this point. I mean, I just feel like they got to clean it up, make it a more straightforward system. We talk about it, like the whole purpose of the salary cap is that we're supposed to be putting all the teams on an even playing field. And, I think when you have like all these creative ways of pushing money into the future and rolling money over from a past year, I don't know, dude. It jacks it up in my opinion. I'm not digging it.
Yeah. Well, like I understand rolling money over because if you don't spend or for whatever reason, like Jacksonville has a ton of rollover cap space from last year, but it's because I mean they had a plan. They were getting rid of anyone with talent to have the worst record in the league to get Trevor Lawrence.
Tank for
And
Trevor? Yeah.
yeah, and it makes sense for them because like if they don't have the number one pick, they're not signing Urban Meyer as their new head coach. Urban Meyer's not going there, period. And they now have all this cap space to start to buid the team. But so don't have an issue with the roller cap. What I have an issue with is borrowing from future year caps. How far out is it going to go? Sign the guy to a
Mhm.
10-year extension, void 8 of the years,
Yeah.
give him $100 million, and he only costs 10 million against the cap. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're selling your future basically,
Uh,
you know.
yeah, and it's like, and the Saints were doing that for years
Hmm.
with Breeze and a bunch of these guys, and look at them now. I mean, they've gotten it down to like 11 million, but they had to cut like half of their veterans
Yeah.
to get down to just being over by 11 million where they are now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they've restructured a lot of deals and they've cut a lot of guys and they're getting there, but it's like, man, all this, yeah, it's manipulation, dude. It's
Yeah.
manipulation.
And like Kansas City apparently is converting Mahomes's roster bonus this year to a signing bonus, which
Oh
then
yeah.
spreads it out over the 9 years remaining on his. I mean, it gives him like 17 million additional cap space, and it's just like, it's just so. This is why people make in the NFL make good money
Yeah. Yeah.
to figure this shit out, because it's just convoluted and ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of, we've talked a little bit about the Lions in past segments and that's why I look at it as, hey, you know that your salary cap's jacked up with a piss poor roster. You might as well make 2021 just a wipeout year, and then 2022, hopefully you're all stocked up on draft picks, and that's when the real rebuild starts. And you don't have to worry about the mess that like all these other teams like the Saints are dealing with because you're starting from hopefully a clean slate at that point.
Yeah.
All right,
I
so
was just
next,
looking up when they have to, when the teams have to be under the cap because it's coming up. Like,
I thought they still had some time, but yeah, you let me know while you're looking that up. And the next guy I had on my list here, we already talked about a little bit, was Trent Brown. So the Raiders traded him back to the Patriots, and I heard they're swapping late round picks. I don't have the exact details, but part of the trade, they got him to restructure. So now he's on a 1 year, $11 million deal. I think that's a solid deal for the Patriots. And I think, what I read is the move clears about 14 million in cap space for the Raiders. And so it's a win-win, I think, for both of those teams.
yeah, I mean, he's been
Well,
terrible
we
there.
yeah, we talked about the COVID year. It was a wasted year for him, but yeah, if he stays healthy, he's a solid tackle. And I think the Patriots need that with all the guys they got hitting free agency.
Yeah, so it's 4 p.m. Eastern time next Wednesday that teams have to be under the cap.
Damn, it is. That's a lot sooner than I thought it was for some reason, but okay.
Yeah. I,
All
I,
right.
I remember hearing that this week and I didn't write it down and then I hadn't had time to look it up yet.
Yeah. Well, that explains all the moves that we've been getting this week. And I mean, we're close to free agency, so it's, this is all happening. But all right. So the next one I saw on here was, holy crap, I didn't even take good notes here. But the Titans traded away Isaiah Wilson, former first round pick. Did they give up too soon on the guy? I don't know. Was it a cap thing? I don't know. I didn't read a whole ton about it, but anytime you see a first round pick move that fast, it's worth noting. And I mean, we could look it up, find out where he went and all that stuff, but you
So
know,
he was traded to Miami, I believe. Um, but I think there was articles that I had read earlier in the off season where basically he was for whatever reason unhappy in Tennessee and he had posted like Instagram or Twitter about he was done with Tennessee and then
okay.
the GM or coach came out and said something along the lines of, well, he has to decide if he wants to be an NFL player.
Oh,
And
geez.
so I mean there was shit in the background going on and that I mean they just it was better for both parties that they just got rid of him.
All right. Well, hey, I mean, Miami's a good landing spot for him. They need help on the offensive line. He is a former first round pick, so if he gets his shit together, that's good for Miami, man. So next up, I've got Zach Ertz. The trade talk is heating up with him. There was a lot of talk about him possibly being released. If that was the case, he'd be a top free agent. But I think they're going to get something out of a trade. And, when you look across the league at all the tight ends out there, this was a down year for him, but I would say he's still arguably a top 4 or 5 tight end in the league. And so, I'm interested to see where he ends up. Like last week, I think you were talking about well, even tonight you mentioned Jonnu Smith going to New England, I believe. This is another name that I think the Patriots should be looking at because, like you mentioned, they need pass catchers. In their past, with Gronkowski and some of those other tight ends, they've had a lot of success. You got a chance to get a guy like Zach Ertz, go get him. I mean, crap, go get him and Jonnu Smith and just tear it up with your tight ends, man. Because the Saints have been just god awful. I mean, the Saints, the Patriots have just been god awful getting wide receivers, man. Edelman, great, not a true number one. You know, just double down on tight ends if you have to.
Yeah, so at the Patriots recently have had issues even at the tight end position. Like the last two
Yep.
years, they haven't been able to get production at tight end. I mean, heck, even if the Patriots were to go out, the Lions cut Jesse James today.
Yep.
If the Patriots were go out and get him, that would be an improvement over what they've had at tight end the last couple of years. I agree with you that Zach Ertz would probably trading Zach Ertz to New England would probably be better for Philly than just cutting him. Like looking at it though, like I mean they have a lot of work to do on their cap, and
Yeah.
it would only save 5 million, so they would still have to find another 4 million or so to cut to get under the cap.
Yeah, and I just think if you have the possibility of nailing some draft picks in return for a guy, you always want to try and go that avenue first. But yeah, there's always some other factors in there, and yeah, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's the rumor mill's starting to buzz about Zach Ertz.
Hmm.
So next up, I got the Saints on here, and like you mentioned, they've been making a ton of moves. The big ones that I noted were the restructured deals for Cam Jordan and Demario Davis, saved them about 13.5 million. And then I also saw that they released Emmanuel Sanders, and I know there's a few other guys on that list. If you want to expand on what you've been reading.
Well, shit, they also restructured Michael Thomas's deal.
Yep. Oh,
Um,
good point. Yep. Yep.
I'm trying to remember. Like for some reason, they they released offensive linemen.
I know they
Oh, sh-
released a guy a couple weeks ago from the offensive line. Maybe there was another domino to fall there.
yeah, I'm gonna have to pull it up because like it's with the Saints, it's been coming so fast and furious. I can't keep like they might have released Jenkins.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yep, Janoris Jenkins was on his way out. Yep,
So
and
it's
I
like
think that's okay. He was more of like a risk reward kind of guy at this point in his career. He wasn't really one of their top guys, and so it's he came in, he had some flashy plays here and there, but he also got burned here and there, and so it's I think they're fine to let him walk
yeah,
or to show him the door rather.
I'm trying to find their transactions because it was
Yeah,
like
yeah, and while you're looking at that, somehow, despite all of that, they frickin' tagged their safety Marcus Williams. I mean, it's just like I never thought in a million years that they would be in play on the tag, but they, hey, like you talked about it, man, their GM, the guy's like a frickin' magician. He's finding ways to make the moves. So,
yeah. So far they've um I mean, last week when we were talking, I think they were like 60 million over the cap, and now they're 11. Okay, so they released Jenkins, they released Quan Alexander,
oh yeah, that was coming. Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders. Re-signed. Release Cook. Released Hill. I thought there was another one, but I thought there was another offensive lineman besides Easton, but I'm not seeing it.
Okay. I mean, hey, they've done a lot of work in a short period of time. I mean, they're getting pretty darn close.
Yeah, I mean, 11 million, and like they have. There's some spots. So I was looking at it where with I was looking at their cap, and there's some spots where they can still save. I mean, it depends on a couple of things. Like they could renegotiate Hill. Let me see what else. Jesus Christ. I, every time I look at this, it baffles me
The dead
how,
cap hits.
yeah, like Cam Jordan, his cap hit this year is 9 million. If they cut him, it's 30 million.
Well, they just restructured him, so he's
Oh,
basically locked in. Yeah,
I missed that one.
yeah. Him and Demario Davis, they got restructured to free up some space.
Right, but I just
Yeah.
looking at it, it's like they might actually they might actually be under the cap.
It's been a wild ride for them, man. All right, so
Oh
here,
no.
while you're playing around, I'll move on to my next guy. This is just one, I like the defensive side of the ball. Denzel Perryman looks like he's going to be testing out free agency. Longtime Chargers linebacker. He's been a pretty steady, solid guy for them. It's going to be strange seeing him on another squad, but I'm interested to see where he ends up. Other than him, I saw the Cardinals released kicker Zane Gonzalez. You know, not too many people care about the kicker news, but I'll be honest with you. I like Zane Gonzalez. I know the guy's had some ups and downs, but he's got the big leg, and I'm expecting him to latch on somewhere else because, quite frankly, there's just not enough good kickers in the league, and so somebody's going to give this guy a shot.
Yeah, and the thing with that is when earlier a couple weeks ago when right after the JJ Watt signing, the I heard the GM talk and he kind of signaled that they were going to move on from the kicker. I mean, Zane Gonzalez had troubles last year.
Yeah.
He struggled a little bit, and they had needed an upgrade there. I mean, like we can go through their schedule. Like I think it was like 5 of their losses were by 3 points or less.
They were tight. Yep.
So they kind of they needed that upgrade an upgraded kicker to get them take a step forward.
I think the question is, can they upgrade at kicker? Because we've seen a lot of teams get bit by a bad kicker these last few years. And, I just don't know that a better kicker's floating around out there, to be honest.
Right, but the thing, but if you get a new kicker, the coach is at least gonna have a little bit more confidence in him. If you don't have confidence in
Yeah.
the kicker, and he's kind of been, it's just time to
Oh,
move on from him
yeah,
and find
I,
somebody else.
I got you. Yeah, there's some bad muscle memory where you're like, okay, hey, it's fourth and short, and it's a 50-something yard kick. Do we really want this guy to boot it, or are we just going to go for it? Yeah, I got you. All right, so next up we got just a list of guys that got the tag. This is not all inclusive, but Leonard Williams, at least it was expected. I didn't see if it actually got finalized, but he was expected to get tagged. Cam Robinson, Kenny Galladay not getting tagged, and the article I read cited the cap concerns. I know that he's coming off an injury-plagued year, so that complicated some things. We talked about safety Marcus Williams got tagged by the Saints. Allen Robinson got tagged by the Bears, and Chris Godwin tanked by the Bucks, man. So it's and there's a few more. Those are just some of the notable ones, but we're going to have to try to factor those in tonight as we do our free agency matchmaker, because obviously that affects who's actually available. And then, there's the variable hanging out there of Allen Robinson. There was all the tag and trade talk, and so phase one is complete. Let's see where he goes now in phase two, or maybe something changes and they hang on to the guy. Who the heck knows, you know?
Yeah. So I on my list I have Leonard Williams officially did get tagged. It was the second one. Um, Also, in addition to tagging Godwin, the Tampa Bay re-signed David.
Yeah, and so we were question of the week last week. How many guys would they hang on to between those two and Shaq Barrett? Looks like they got those two, and it looks like Shaq Barrett's going to be on his way out, is from what I'm hearing. But you know, there's still some time. Anything can happen, I suppose.
Yeah, anything happen. I think they have a shot at keeping all three of them.
It'd be impressive, and you know, they still got to go out and get Gronk back and some other guys. So you know, it's yeah. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. Obviously, the Saints are, you know, the case in point with that. So it's just a matter of getting creative.
Yeah, well, also today they restructured Brady's deal and gave him a 1 year extension with, I think it was like a 5 year extension with 4 voided years to
I hope you're
whatever.
joking.
Huh?
I hope you're joking.
No. I'm not joking. It's like a 5 year extension with 4 voided years, so it ultimately ends up as a
Ah,
1 year extension, and yeah,
this
converts.
is it's turning into a joke, man. I mean, that's not
It
even.
is. It is. You, I. It sounds like I'm joking, but I'm dead fucking serious on it. It's absurd.
Oh shit. All right.
But
Well,
it saves them like 17 million against the cap,
yeah.
and so like that's why like when we were initially talking, like I think Tampa Bay's now under the cap somehow.
All right, well, hey, maybe they make a few more moves and they can get Shaq Barrett back. All right, so you know, I guess just a couple other you know, news points, franchise tag wise. Brandon Scherf got tagged by Washington. I think that was a smart move on their part. Not tag related. Offensive tackle Darrell Williams re-signed with the Bills. He's got a new 3-year deal with them. Uh, what am I missing here, man? There was so much that happened this past week. I know I'm sure a handful of things I didn't
Milano
cover.
re-signed with Buffalo.
There you go, which I think was good for him because honestly, I'm not super high on him. And so I think his best spot was back with Buffalo. Just my opinion. I think he would have been a bust signing somewhere else.
Um, Kansas City released Fisher and Schwartz, which I
Oh yeah, that was
unfortunate I
yeah.
unfortunately called that like last
Yeah.
week or 2 weeks ago. Like it appeared that it was going to happen. That was one of the only ways they were going to get even
Yeah.
close to the cap because they were way over, and then they restructured Mahomes. So like it's just it's sad. Like this year, I mean, honestly though, it's a lot better than how it would have been because
Yeah. Yeah.
they if they wouldn't have had the deal, like I mean, the CBA and everything, there would have been another 20 million that they would have had to cut.
Yeah, and you know, like obviously I'm a Central Michigan guy, so you know Eric Fisher getting cut bothers me, but you know it's one of those deals. I mean, he's still a good story. You know, he was the number one pick. You know, had a little bit of a rocky road early on, but he earned a nice extension with the team. You know, Andy Reid gave him some good praise, and then had it not been for which I heard just today, the combination of the Achilles and his age, they might have tried to hang on to him, you know, and I think that that's the risk is that, you know, can he come back from that Achilles? I've heard that there's already teams looking at him as, you know, maybe you got to sign him to a couple-year deal, expecting that this year he may or may not really be effective, but that it's 2022, you're getting him and you know you're locking him down to be your left tackle. You know, it's interesting and it's tough for a guy in that position in this stage of his career, all that. But I'm hoping the best for him, obviously. You know, I'm all about firing up chips. So, you know,
Yeah. So I think that's all all I
Oh,
had
oh,
for.
I had one more. The Falcons re-signed their kicker, Younghoe Koo. I like that guy, man. He was the dude out in San Diego before they moved, I believe, or maybe it was after they moved to Los Angeles. And some teams were calling out that he had like a tell in his kick, and so he had a couple kicks blocked, and they let him go. And he ended up having a pretty good year with Atlanta last year, and so I'm glad they hung on to that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, man, I just came across a couple other things. We might as well mention them because we got nothing but time tonight, James. Mark Ingram signs a 1-year deal with the Texans.
Oh, I forgot about that.
This is one where, I mean, hey, you're from Michigan. I still live in Michigan. He's a Michigan guy, from the Flint area, and went on to win a Heisman. His NFL career, total bummer, man. The guy's always been a complimentary piece. When he went to Baltimore, I was hoping, hey, maybe he's finally going to be the workhorse. Didn't really end up being the case for him. But it's okay, like he's still in the league. He's still being fairly productive. But last year was a down year, obviously. But he's going to the Texans, and we know they got David Johnson. So another complimentary kind of role. But I think that that's a good value signing for the Texans. It's a 1-year deal for up to 3 million. If he's healthy, he's productive. That's a steal in my opinion.
Yeah, well, was it 2 years ago he had a phenomenal year?
Yep.
Like, I mean, and then, but that was like his only featured back year, and then last year they drafted Dobbins and kind of put him to like relegated him to splitting time with was it Dobbins? Yeah, Dobbins.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
but looking at him like towards the end of 2 years ago and this last year, he looked pretty shot. So I don't know how much he has left to give Houston, but
Eh.
then again, Houston's going to have a new quarterback, so who
So yeah, they're going to
cares?
need to lean on the run possibly. Yeah. Okay, so I think that covers it for the news quite a bit. Let's kick it over to our free agency matchmaker segment. And so, like we were talking about earlier, tonight we're just talking NFC teams. We did AFC last week. You can hit us up on YouTube if you want to check that video out. The franchise tag stuff's in the book. And so, you still have some guys like Daryl Williams just did that can be re-signed and knock them off the list here. But for the most part, I think that we're getting pretty close. And so, what we're going to talk about, hey, maybe we can line up some guys that make logical sense for teams with their needs and whatnot. So, uh, you know, just like last week, I think the best way to do this is go in alphabetical. We'll start off by talking about each team, what kind of cap space they got, what their biggest needs are, and then we'll talk about what are some of the free agents hanging out there in the market that they should be looking at to fill those needs. And so I got the Arizona Cardinals first on the list. And, I'm just keeping Spotrac up tonight, James, because we know last time I did this, my numbers were wildly outdated just within days of our session on Friday. And so Cardinals looks like they're sitting at 21.8 million in cap space, 21.9 million cap space. That's a pretty healthy amount. When I looked at the team and what kind of needs they had, I think cornerback is up there. I think wide receivers up there, and I think offensive line is up there. Offensive line, I will just say, um, I think people are questioning that because Kyler Murray's a mobile quarterback, and I keep hearing about, if you got a mobile quarterback, you can deprioritize that offensive line. I don't know, man. I just want to keep the quarterback clean. I never, I could never get enough offensive line help. So those were my top three needs. What are you seeing? Do you agree? You got some other positions hanging out there? Or what are you thinking, man?
Give me a second. I have to get my notes up. I'm just trying
Sure.
to get rid
Yeah,
of all these damn
yeah, yeah. So while you're
moves off my list.
Yeah, so while you're getting your notes up, I'll just mention that they did sign J.J. Watt, and so him and Chandler Jones, shit, man, that has me excited for that defensive line. I mean, you talk
Hmm.
about putting some freaking pressure on quarterbacks, and that's without even having to send a guy on a blitz. you start doing that kind of stuff, just the J.J. Watt signing totally transforms his team. It's got me excited. But, looking at some of the free agents hanging out there, the one that I've heard about, which, I'm sure it's just pure speculation, but at wide receiver, some guys have been name dropping T.Y. Hilton. I think it makes good sense. Like he actually had a fairly good year in Indy last year, and so I think he's in favor with some people around the league. Um, he's one of those kind of like shiftier, quicker kind of wideouts. Maybe fits a little bit of what's going on with Kyler Murray and his style of football. But looking at the list of free agent wide receivers this year, there's a lot of them hanging out there, man. I mean, Allen Robinson got tagged, but he could be traded. You mentioned Galladay. You got Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Juju Smith-Schuster, Corey Davis. I mean, if I'm the Cardinals, you know, my opinion, you throw at least one or two darts at a free agent wide receiver because there's just a lot of guys hanging out there, and you got Kyler Murray going into his prime. You might as well give him weapons, man. With that kind of cap space, just give it a shot.
Yeah, so my notes finally open, and I had the same needs as you had um, for them. For them, I would say for offensive line, I would go after Thuney.
Yeah, I think yeah he
I
seems to
mean, he's going to
be
be a hot
yeah
commodity because
yeah
it's just like there's no real top tier free agent offensive lineman. I
well
think
I
they,
well I think Trent Williams is still hanging out there, right?
yeah, Williams is hanging out there, but the thing with Williams, with him being in San Francisco last year, and San Francisco has a lot of cap space. I think San Francisco's going to make that push to keep him, even though they didn't
Okay,
tag him.
gotcha. Yeah, and
So
he's gonna suck up a lot of space. I don't know that Arizona wants to spend that much on an offensive lineman, to be honest.
yeah, and then and then I could see. I think uh, any one of these wide receivers, but I think also if you're looking at a number two wide receiver, there's a lot of good talent at wide receiver in the draft this year.
Yeah, and maybe that's the combination. Throw a dart at one of these free agents if you can get them for the right value, and then throw a dart in free agency. I mean, in the draft,
Hmm.
and then you pair them up because they still have. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald. Did he officially announce his retirement, or is it still to be determined?
As I haven't heard anything recently on it. It's like Drew Brees. When are these guys going to retire?
Yeah, yeah, and they. I mean, I'm just looking at this. So they still got Christian Kirk, right? They got DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. I mean, it's not like they're hurting at wide receiver. They need a solid two, and I think there's a lot of like T.Y. Hilton would be a solid two, man, and you probably get him at the right price. Even Marvin Jones, man, go after Marvin Jones. He's chasing a contender. Maybe he'd go after them because I think with Watt coming in, like you're looking enticing. And I mean, he was a sweet number two in Detroit for a long time, and in
Hmm.
Cincinnati before us. I mean, there's definitely some options there.
Yeah, there's a lot of options there at wide receiver, but I think they'd be best off kind of looking towards the draft for it with where their cap space is because any of these offensive linemen they sign, it's gonna it's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
soak it up. Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna take up a lot of that cap space. I mean you could get like a Corey Davis or or maybe Marvin Jones, but I think they're better off going to the draft.
I gotcha. I'm just thinking, hey, get him a guy that's going to be productive now. Take advantage of Kyler Murray being in his prime. But hey, there's building through the draft is always a good thing to do. Quarterback, another big need. We talked about it a lot last week. There's really not a true number one cornerback in this free agency class, and it looks like they're letting Patrick Peterson walk. Maybe they work a deal and they get him back. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I look at this list and, there's guys out there that you can take a shot on. It's just, you're not going to get a true number one out of this free agency class.
Hmm.
Okay. Anything else on Arizona? Any other guys you want to point out?
No, because I like. No, I don't think so. Looking at it, like I was gonna say like maybe possibly a running back, but I like Edmonds.
Yeah, let Edmonds be the workhorse, man. That guy, I like him a lot. I think they need to give him a shot. I mean, hey, you want to get a running back, go out and back up a guy to be a complimentary piece or whatever. But I think even if they get a guy, they got to give Edmonds the shot.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we got the Atlanta Falcons, and just kicking it over, looking at their cap space. I'm showing they're in a little bit of trouble right now. They're over by 7.6 million, and you're saying basically they're running out of time here to get under. Um, and I think that's going to be problematic for them because they do have some needs. They've got a need on the edge. They've got a need in the defensive secondary. And, whether you can say that this is a huge need or not, but I think they have a need at running back. We know that this is obviously a very pass heavy team, but, it is still a need. I'm just not sure how much they're going to be able to do, to be honest, because of their cap situation. When I looked at the edge, I thought, man, go out and get a guy like Trey Hendrickson. He seems to be one of these names that's flying under the radar a little bit. Maybe you could get him at the right price. They just don't have any space. And then, and then at running back, I saw an article connecting them with Duke Johnson, and I thought, that could be good. He's been great catching the ball out of the backfield. Pass first team. Same kind of thing though, man. I mean, they just don't have any money. I think they got to roll with their current guys at running back and see what they can get out of it. Maybe draft some guys, and then at defensive back, yeah, there's a lot of guys in free agency. Like you can go and throw some darts, but you got to clear up some cap space first.
So off the top of your head, do you know who Atlanta has under contract at running back currently?
Oh, I'd have to look. Do they still have Ito Smith and
Ito Smith, Quadri Allison,
yeah.
Tony Brooks, James.
Yeah, Quadri Allison, he's a guy that, limited playing time last year, but when I watched him play, he looked like he had a little bit of pop and, just some of that speed where I thought, okay, maybe there's more to come from this guy. And Ito Smith, there was talk about him being a solid backup the couple years prior. And so, I don't know that they're, I don't know that they got a true number one running back on that team, but the league it's moved away from the workhorse running back, and so can you make it work with these guys? Can you draft a guy? I saw Travis Etienne was linked to them in the draft. There's, it just yeah, free agency wise, what are they going to do, man? They have no money.
Yeah, so one person I find interesting that could be a good fit for the style of offense that they run there is James White.
Ooh, I was actually thinking Kenyon Drake, but I like the James White pick. And
Yeah,
I
because I
just
think
wonder, like when you're looking at a guy, because James White, definitely more on the radar than Duke Johnson. Both of them are more receiving backs. Yeah, I just wonder how much money they're gonna be looking for. Is it gonna be
yeah,
3 mil, 4 mil? Can they squeeze 3 or 4 mil? For one of those guys, and then you make it work with Ito Smith and Allison as the background guys. I don't know.
yeah, but and you mentioned ETN at Atlanta has like the number 4 pick in the draft. There's no
Oh,
way they're going running back at
no, no.
4.
They'd have to be looking him sliding to the second round or who's going to
Yeah,
be there in the second round. And you never know. I mean, I see him mocked in the first round all the time, but we've seen it in these past however many years that running backs typically slide. And we've had the random big running back go top 10 or whatever, but then most of the time it seems like they slide. So it's flip a coin, man. Maybe you get him in the second round.
yeah. I just with Atlanta, they're going to want do one of two things. They're going to trade back or they're going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe both. Maybe both. And it's just Mac Jones. They trade back and they get him later on, or who the heck knows.
No, because Mac Jones is going to New England. But
All right. Well, hey,
sorry,
bold,
sorry.
bold,
That's
bold
that's a
prediction.
future.
Yeah.
That's a future episode where we go through our projected first round.
Yeah, you're playing Oracle. I got you. All right. Well, that's all I got for Atlanta, man. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers. And just taking a look here, cap space wise, the Panthers are in great shape. 32.6 million roughly. I'm showing, their big needs: offensive line, cornerback, and quarterback. I think they helped alleviate some of the pain from the offensive line by putting the tag on Taylor Moton. They can go a lot of different ways at cornerback. They're not, like we talked about, they're not going to get a true number one, but there's a lot of solid twos on this list. I had them going after Michael Davis. He was a guy that I thought, I read that he's like a really good value pick, and something about that, just with like Matt Rule, kind of like had me thinking, I could see him going after a guy like that and him being a solid performer on that team. But then quarterback is the big thing. And they've still been hot and heavy from everything I've been hearing, wanting to go after Deshaun Watson. And I actually heard some crazy ass shit that they could potentially throw out 5 freaking first rounders for Watson.
Yeah. So Carolina has been clearing and trying to maneuver the cap space to be able to afford Watson. And all the moves they've been making this offseason are with that in mind. They're going to throw whatever the fuck Houston wants at Houston to get Watson. One of the interesting things I heard, I can't remember if it was this week or last week. I mean, the last like 2 weeks, there's been so much fucking news dump on the NFL. But
Yeah.
apparently, and we'll talk about it a little bit when we get to San Francisco too. San Francisco called Carolina to inquire about trading for Teddy Bridgewater.
Ooh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
See,
So
I like Bridgewater. I think if you're, and maybe that's not a bad thing, because when you look at San Francisco, they got a solid defense and they have a solid running game. If you can get an efficient game manager at quarterback, maybe that's all that team needs, man.
hmm yeah, and I like Michael Davis going there, or them targeting Michael Davis for cornerback. I think for the needed offensive line, I still see them trading for uh, Orlando Brown from
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
just
I see.
lock it down. Just be a
Yeah,
dominant offensive. Yeah.
and if they can't do that, and it's looking like they're not going to get in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, I could see them backing up the Brinks truck for somebody like Williams for
Nice.
offense for the O line. Like I mean, it's just like it depends on where they go, but I could see them just throwing gobs of money at Trent Williams if they're not able to shore up the offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it makes sense. I mean, they're in a good position that, you know, they can do some things. And I don't think they're going to get Watson, but who the heck knows? I mean, it just, I mean, anything can happen. This has been such a crazy year. But if you gave up 5 freaking first round picks, man, I just don't see how you're ever going to get to the Super Bowl when you're giving away 5 first round picks. I mean, it just, I don't know. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Okay, anything else on Carolina?
No, nothing else on Carolina.
Okay, so next up we got the Chicago Bears, and they're not looking so hot. Holy crap, I didn't know that they were in this bad a shape. Spotrac is showing them $23.4 million over the cap. Does that seem right to you?
It seems, I think I was looking at that and I thought it was high. Like
Oh,
for
maybe
some,
because maybe because the tag of Allen Robinson goes in there, and that's probably 16 million or something.
yeah, it's like 15.8, but close enough. And
Yeah.
but there was like I swear that they had done some stuff and gotten under the cap. Like I didn't think they were that bad.
Yeah, this is a tough one. So they're like very clearly needing to trade Allen Robinson, or they just have no cap space. But when I look at their top three needs, I'm coming up with quarterback, obviously, wide receiver if you trade Allen Robinson, and offensive lineman. And the quarterback thing, I don't know that they're getting it out of free agency. I mean, they have
Uh,
no money. They have no money to spend. But I mean, you start looking at guys. I like Fitzpatrick. I wish he would go to New England. But you got Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor. They're probably not going back with Mitch Trubisky. But you start looking at those names and you say, really, are any of those guys that much of an improvement on Nick Foles? And so what's their answer? Probably going to the draft, or trying to pull off a trade, but they just don't have the resources.
so this is what Chicago is going to do at quarterback next year, and I
Ne-
fucking hate it.
Next year or this year, 2021.
2021, 2022, going forward, and I fucking hate it,
Okay.
and it's going to kill me, and it's going to kill the fucking Lions.
Oh no. Oh no. All right. Who are they getting and how are they getting them?
2021 first round pick, 2021 second round pick, 2021 third round pick, 2022 first round pick, Khalil Mack, Russell Wilson.
What? Don't even say. You're freaking crazy, man. Like
I
you
would give
are
it a
you are
si-
you
I would give it a 65% chance by next Friday Russell Wilson's a Chicago Bear.
how? They have no cap space.
I don't it's
They'll manipulate like we're talking about with the Saints. They'll
they'll
sign guys to 20-year deals with 19 voidable years.
yeah, they'll manipulate it. And the thing but the reason why, if I remember correctly when I went through it, where the fuck are they? Ah, they're there. So, Khalil Mack, maybe not Khalil Mack. That's too much of a hit.
I mean, that would be attractive for the Seahawks if they want to get back to their defensive ways, but it's man, I
It's
don't know, dude. It seems too aggressive to me.
it's gonna have to be somebody else. But how do they get under the cap is gonna be interesting.
All right, so listen, while you're looking at some of that, assuming they make the trade on Allen Robinson, I looked at some of the wide receivers sitting out there, and the guy that, whether it makes sense or not, I'm just throwing this out there, is Curtis Samuel. He was sort of like that gadget guy in Carolina last year, receiver, runner, trick play guy. They were doing a lot of that with Cordero Patterson last year. Maybe they do a similar kind of thing with Curtis Samuel. But it all goes back to, do they really have the money to spend in free agency? And if they get creative, yeah, hey, maybe they can get a guy like that. Um, I think their priority is offensive line, and it's a similar thing. Who are they going to be able to spend the money on? We know that there's some guys on the offensive line. You got a couple center prospects. Corey Linsley's out there. You got, you mentioned Tooney at guard, but he's going to be expensive. And then at tackle, Trent Williams, I don't see them breaking the bank for him. Maybe they go Alejandro Villanueva because it looks like he's going to be a value guy on the offensive line. And then Kelvin Beachum, he's a guy that just doesn't get any love, but he started 16 games last year. I like him. So those are kind of some of the targets on the offensive line, but they're going to have to get creative to make it work, man.
Yeah, so to get under the cap, they got to like restructure Fuller and they might even cut Jimmy Graham.
I think they should. They got Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
He looked okay last year, and you give him another year now that he's stepping up in year two. I think it's worth taking the shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, or cut Graham and trade Robinson. Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's a combination. I think they got to trade Robinson no matter what.
yeah, and it's 17.8 what he's costing them this year.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
makes sense why they're so
and
so much over.
I mean, I look like we keep talking about the Patriots, and it's because they got so much freaking cap space. This is a team that's like barely ever found good wide receivers. Go and get Allen Robinson and sign him to a long deal. Allen Robinson is a legit wide receiver one in this league. And here's the deal. If you're going to roll with Cam Newton again, I think that's a perfect combination because
Hmm.
Cam Newton's had success in the past with those more physical possession kind of wide receivers, and I think Allen Robinson is close enough to that camp that that's the right combination, at least for the pieces that they got to play with. My opinion.
Well, the thing about Allen Robinson is, and I'm going to look up his stats because like he's had solid statistical years, and yeah, he has 6,000 receiving yards total in his career,
Mhm.
and who's thrown him the ball?
A bunch of jokers, man.
Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles, and Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't had a legit quarterback, and he's what 4 years, 7 years. He has 6,000 yards.
I I think he's solid, dude. I mean, I've watched a lot of his games with him being in the NFC North. I would go and I would lock that guy down, and if, like I said, if you're the Patriots, you have no luck at getting good wide receivers. I mean, Edelman was good, but not a number one. Get this guy, get him while you can. If you're the Steelers, you don't even think about it because you just freaking stumble across wide receivers every year.
Hmm. So so and so in his 7 years, one of the years he played one game,
Yeah, yeah, I
one,
remember
one
he had an
in
injury one year.
17. Yeah, he got injured, of course, because it sticks out because his catch percentage is 100%. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. He's a solid wide receiver. I would like nothing more than him not to be in Chicago
Yeah.
when they get Russell Wilson.
James, just stop with that nonsense. All right, so we good on Chicago, or you got anybody else you want to talk about?
No, that was it. Like also, like I like your idea of Cordell Patterson and
Curtis
coming
Samuel,
back. Curtis Samuel, yeah, sorry, Curtis
getting
Samuel.
getting yeah, getting the gadget guy for Nagy's offense. He likes doing all sorts of creative kind of things.
Yeah.
Of course, they could be getting Tariq Cohen back. I mean, he can fill some of that role too. So, okay. So moving on here, we got the Dallas Cowboys up next, and let's see where they're at now that they got Dak locked down. I'm showing them sitting at 20.7 million, man. That's pretty freaking good. I didn't think it
Hmm.
was that high. But, okay. They signed Dak. Quarterback is off the board. That was their top need that I had. Aside from that, I got defensive back and I got defensive lineman. And the name that's sticking out to me for defensive lineman is Jadeveon Clowney. Say what you want to say. I don't know what it is. Jerry Jones likes these big name, flashy kind of moves, and I could just see that being a guy that they might go after. But we talked about it last week. There are a lot of edge guys in this free agency class. And so just it's like take your pick, man. Who do you like the best? Who's giving you the most bang for the buck? You know, I mean, I like what Eldon Smith did for these guys last year. You know, and they still got DeMarcus Lawrence, but you know, they do need to get a little bit more push on that defensive line.
Hmm. So a couple players I could see them going after. I could see them going after KJ Wright.
Okay. Yeah, so we're talking, yeah, you know, getting locking up a linebacker.
Yeah, locking
Man,
up a linebacker.
I guess I'm in disbelief that Seattle's really going to let him go, but I guess it's it's moving in that direction so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's weird. I don't understand it, but
And so is
they,
that,
you
are
know,
you
Seattle
thinking,
tends to move on from players a couple years too early. Like look at like when they let Reed go and let Sherman go. Like I mean, they kind of move on from the player like a few years too early because they think he's done and they don't want to pay them.
so are you thinking at linebacker or you know, what ended up happening? Is Sean Lee coming back or what's going on with him? Because they still have you know, Van Der Esch, and they still have Jalen Smith, you know, the dude from Notre Dame. He's had a great, you know, kind of run since he got his knee back. Um, and I know that their linebackers they played fairly erratic last year, but if you go just to the year before, that same group of guys played great. And so, you know, I didn't have linebackers that high of a priority, but you know, I am a big fan of stacking the linebackers. So,
Yeah, so at linebacker, the couple things I saw at linebacker for them was just the erratic play last year. Also, I mean they have Sean Lee's a unrestricted free agent. Like Van Der Esch
yeah.
wasn't he was hurt last year.
Yeah, yeah, because I kind of thought Sean Lee was out, but I couldn't remember. And so yeah, so I guess
And
they do
Jalen
have an opening.
Jalen Smith was hurt last year too. So I mean they had some injuries at linebacker. They had like some players that like Sean Lee's free agent. I kind of saw it as a potential need for them,
Yeah.
depending on what happens. Also another player I could see them going after, and this is where the 20.7 million because with Dak's contract, it was like he would have cost like 38 million against the cap, but now he only costs 22. They could get a shot at like going after like a Bud Dupree or a player like that.
Yeah, that'd be solid. All right, so let's talk about defensive back for a minute because I was just burning through my list there. You know, there's a couple names that stick out to me, and they drafted Diggs last year. You know, young up and comer in my opinion. I would consider going and getting a guy like Xavier Rhodes, seasoned veteran cornerback. Yeah, you know he's in that decline phase of his career, but can be a great mentor for a young guy. And I think that they probably have to go to the draft again for another young guy. And so you might as well get a solid veteran that can teach him a thing or two. You know, Patrick Peterson, he's out there. Can he be that kind of mentor? I don't know. Do they want to pay him? I don't know. Richard Sherman's hanging out there. You know, another big name. You know, we just got to mention the names because, you know, it's Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. But, you know, my personal favorite out of the group is Xavier Rhodes if you're looking for a mentor.
Yeah, and especially and that's what you'd be paying Rhodes for because he doesn't really have like last year was kind of a bust for him, and he's kind of on the decline. So if you get a cornerback, it would really be for a mentor rollout from what I'm seeing on the free agents.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the list I had, he was ranked 61 out of the top 101 free agents. And so it's not, you know, I think you can still get some production out of him. But yeah, I guess you got to balance how much is he going to want to make and how much is he going to play versus how much is he going to be, you know, more about leadership for the young guys. And, you know, it was just a thought. All
Yeah, but
right,
I agree that going after a cornerback in the draft is probably
smart
their
move for them. Yeah.
best option.
Okay, so next up, unless you got anything else on Dallas, I guess I should just assume you're ready to move on.
No, we can skip the next shitty team.
Well, no, let's talk about him because I'm wearing, uh, you know, Detroit Lions. We're going alphabetical here. We're not skipping anybody. So listen, after all the moves they've made, I'm showing that they're sitting at 9.2, 9.3 million in cap space. So they've got a little bit of money to play around with. It's not a ton. Uh, my three needs for this team when I look at it, defensive line, linebacker, I mean, really, you could do all three levels on defense if you wanted to. But wide receiver is obviously a huge need now. Kenny Galladay likely gone. They brought in Tyrell Williams, but they got to get a few more guys in there. And so, based on all that, with 9 million and change to play around with, what are you thinking, man?
So that 9 million and change, and this is where Spotrac is kind of, because Spotrac seems to be always the most up to date,
Yeah.
but it still has Trufant in there, who they cut. It still has, I think it still has, no, not Collins. They didn't cut. Who's the other guy they cut? Uh,
James Jones.
Jesse James.
James Jones. Jesse James. I had the JJ right. I'm just
Yeah. So
wrong pass catcher.
it has the Coleman cut and the Jesse James cut listed
Yeah.
as dead cap now, but it still has Trufant in there. So I mean that's going to go up by 6 million.
Yeah, and so they're looking for value picks in free agency. And
Yeah.
so, when I'm looking at wide receivers, you got to go far down on that list to get value pick. And I would throw a dart on Brashad Perriman, my opinion. I think they could get him for the right price. You pair him with Tyrell Williams. Maybe you go to the well in the draft. You get the young guy, and that's kind of your combination for this year. Um, looking at defense, I mean, honestly, we're talking value picks once again. We just mentioned Xavier Rhodes. You know that these guys drafted Okuda very high last year. Maybe this is where we need to get Xavier Rhodes. Bring him in and be like, come on, man, teach this young guy. Super high draft pick. We need to get something good out of him. And maybe he just needs a mentor. Um, the defensive back I personally like is Desmond King. I'd go after him. And he's ranked at 80 on the top 101, so maybe we get him at a good price. Um, but yeah, I mean, then you go defensive line, and it's all about getting pressure on the quarterback, and we've not done a good job with it. Looks like Okwara is going to be gone possibly. I'd love to hang on to him. I think he was such a great story for Detroit. If we could keep him, that's my preference. If we can't keep him, I don't know, man. I really don't even know where to look. I mean, Eldon Smith is out there unless Dallas goes and gets him. Could we get him at the right price? Man, I like that guy. You know, I don't know, dude. What are you thinking?
So I'm. Oh,
I,
that was the
I
other one
mean,
I
you
was looking
mentioned
at for.
KJ Wright at linebacker. I would love the Lions to get KJ Wright at linebacker. I don't see it happening, but
Yeah.
you know,
So that cap space that for the Lions and well for all these teams cap space, it does not include the projected draft pool for cap hits for their draft picks.
okay.
I just noticed that. The other thing I noticed about the Lions is it doesn't include the Tyrell Williams contract.
Okay.
So their projected draft pool is nearly eats up all of that cap.
So they're going value. They're going value.
Going value. What I would like, if for some reason they had $9.2 million available cap space, what I would well, no, because they have the 6 million from Trufant.
Jesse James.
No, Trufant.
Trufant. Gotcha.
So because the Trufant's still listed as not being cut,
Yeah.
so it's still listed as So what I would like them to do is not do shit in free agency. Not do a goddamn thing and just roll that money over to next year and start spending the money next year and just throw this year away.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my opinion, I'm with you. And when I look at the draft this year, which we'll talk about later, hint, hint, it's coming. If I'm the Lions, I'm trading back all these picks to next year. And I'm just like, next year's draft, we're running the show, man. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
this year it's risky with the limited footage that you got on all these players. This is the perfect time to roll back, man. And we know that this year's effed for the Lions anyhow. So let's just push it all to next year.
Yes.
Okay, so next up, I got the Green Bay Packers. And, flipping it over to Spotrac, I'm showing that they're over by 8.2 million. So they got some work to do. The top needs that I have for this team, the first one I think is debatable, but I got wide receiver on here because, every year we talk about getting Rodgers weapons. He always makes it work with these guys, so I don't know. But I got wide receiver, I got linebacker, and I got defensive line. And, I think they got a lot of options, to be honest. My top pick out of all the guys that I looked at in free agency, if they can find a way to get the space, I'd go after Hassan Reddick if I was them. He kind of fits sort of that linebacker defensive line edge sort of role. Could be the perfect piece for that defense for what they need, man.
That's a good one.
And while you're thinking about it and talking about it, I got to step up for a minute. I'll be right back.
That's right. Hassan Reddick's a good pick there. The thing with Green Bay is they don't spend in free agency. I can't remember like a couple years ago, like this Eldon. Who did they sign? One of the Smith brothers that are there.
Oh, they signed them both. They signed Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, and that's the only move they've really made in free agency of a big name player. They don't go after big name players.
Yeah.
They try to draft. I agree with you.
I think some of that was old regime. I think we're seeing the new regime now is willing to do some stuff, but if they don't have the cap space, what can they do?
Gutekunst, his first year was when he went after Preston and Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
After that, since then, they haven't done shit in free agency. What, signed Devin Funchess? Or whatever his first name is?
Okay.
But they do need weapons for Rodgers. They do need a wide receiver number 2 with them. And the player, if they were to go after somebody, the perfect number 2 to play with Rodgers, and he wants to go to a contender, would be Marvin Jones.
Oh, man, when you said the contender thing, I thought, here we go, Marvin Jones. I'd hate to see him go to the Packers, but, I don't know, man. I like Marvin Jones. I've dogged him in the past, I'm sure. But, in general, I like him. And, yeah, I think he'd be solid there. Hey, it could happen, man.
And then I go through. I think I really like the fit of Hassan Reddick there.
Yeah, I think Hassan Reddick, that's like a match made in heaven, in my opinion.
Yeah, like the more I think about it, they need to shore up the defense. That was the reason why they didn't make it to Super Bowl last year, is because they couldn't stop the run.
Yeah. And they got burned in the secondary, which was crazy because they had one of the better secondaries all year. And then playoffs came around and things started getting rocky. But I think the secondary will correct.
I think their secondary problems last year was more coaching malpractice
than
play. Like they're and with the Scotty Miller touchdown against Tampa
Yeah,
Bay,
yeah,
like that was they were just in the absolute wrong defense. Like I mean they were it was ridiculous.
yeah.
And I believe they fired Pettin too.
They did. Yep, he's out.
So I think that's going to correct itself. I think I just don't see them going after a big name free agent though. Like I like I like the Marvin Jones fit there. I like Hassan Reddick there, but I I just
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's outside shot. I agree with you. They don't have a history of making a big splash.
yeah.
Okay, so next up we got the Los Angeles Rams, and these guys, hey, they took our boy Stafford off our hands. I'm showing them as being 32 million over the cap. It's pretty big. So what can they do in free agency? I don't know. I mean, we'll see how they can manipulate things, but I'm showing they've got a need on the offensive line. They've got a need in the defensive backfield, and then they've got a need at the edge position. And I put on here safety John Johnson. I think he's one of their guys, and I just think it would be prudent for them to hang on to him. I just, when I look at the cap situation, I'm hard pressed to put too many names to this team because even the value picks, they're just so far off the cap that I don't know what they're gonna do, man.
Yeah, they have a lot of work to do for the cap. Like I had their needs as I didn't have offensive line as much of a need for them. Outside linebacker, safety, and cornerback.
Okay. Yeah, I like the outside linebacker one. I could see them using some help there. And then yeah, safety and corner. See, I think like cornerback, I could see them being okay. I think it's more at safety, but it's because I mean they have Jalen Ramsey and I forget the other guy. He played pretty well last year as their two. But yeah, like John Johnson, he's one of their safeties that's a free agent, and I would hang on to him if I could. But if you can't hang on to him, who do you go after? I mean, it's just it's about the
Yeah, and
dollars and cents, man.
they're and also Troy Hill's a free agent too.
Yep, yep. So it's hard. It's hard to pair them with anybody. Those are the needs. Who could they go after? I don't know. At outside linebacker, if you were going to throw a dart there, I'm not. I mean, they're definitely. I don't. I just don't. I can't even put a name to it, dude. I can't even do it.
Yeah, it's 32 million. They have to get under the cap first before they can figure out what the fuck
Yeah,
they're gonna do.
yeah. All right. Well, let's move on then. So next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings, and flipping it over to Spotrac. Wow. They need to sponsor our show.
Yeah.
Uh, they got 9.6 million in space. It's not great, but it's not horrible. I've got their top three needs as defensive back, edge guy, and offensive line. And when I looked at some of the names out there, the one that popped off the page to me was defensive back Desmond King. I mentioned him earlier. I just kind of liked him here. I thought it was you could probably get him at the right price, and he's, not like a game changer, but he's a solid veteran guy. And Zimmer, he likes those veteran defensive backs, and so he kind of just fit the bill to me. I don't really dig too much deeper. Like we talk about the edge, there's a lot of guys available, so you kind of just pick your poison there. And then offensive line, I was hesitant to put a name in because I don't think they have enough cap space to really spend big on the offensive line. And all the names in the top 101 offensive line, they're gonna get some money, man.
Well, I think if you went out to like top 120, top 130, all the offensive line free agents are going to get some money
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of even really decent ones that are available.
Hmm.
Um, so a couple things. couple people I saw them going after would be like a Melvin Ingram and Bud Dupree.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess that's Bud Dupree could. It's it's tough, man. I've heard a lot of varying opinions on Bud Dupree. So he's ranked as the number 12 free agent on my list, anyhow. I know that
Hmm.
number's changed a little bit. Melvin Ingram's down a little bit further. He's at 52. But I've heard people all over the board on Bud Dupree saying really he's a product of that Steelers defense and how they run that system. And so that number 12 ranking it's inflated. You go the other way, Melvin Ingram, he's a guy who's past his prime at this point, but once again, solid veteran player. Zimmer likes those guys. Uh, you know, Probably, I mean, it's tough because like to me, Melvin Ingram, he's got a brand name, and so you'd think he'd get paid, but I just wonder between the two of these guys, who's gonna get more money? I think it's all gonna depend on the team. In Minnesota, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. So the thing with Bud Dupree is I understand that people are saying that the Pittsburgh system, blah blah blah, bullshit, bullshit. I'm full of it. I'm trying to downplay but how good of a player Bud Dupree is. Look at last year. When Bud Dupree went down with his injury, which is why he's going to be signed on a value because he did not finish um
Yeah,
the
he got hurt
season.
bad. Yeah,
Um so so he's when he went out, prior to going out, TJ Watt was having a potential defensive player of the year season.
yep. Ah, dude,
When
I
Bud Dupree,
totally underestimated him. But yeah, go ahead.
when Bud Dupree went down, that defense was not the same. So whatever
Yeah.
was going on in Pittsburgh, Bud Dupree drove that defense. I'm really surprised that Pittsburgh is really letting him walk
Hmm.
because he made that defense last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's
Well, it's
maybe
it's a
he's a
cap
product
thing.
of the system. He's
It's
a
but it,
product of the system, but it's
yeah.
it's it's just bullshit.
But
Like
I
he
but I
made the system.
but I know Pittsburgh loves that guy, and the only reason he gets out of there is if they can't find a way to make the money work. And right now it looks like they can't make the money work. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they get creative like the Saints or whatever, and they do some stuff. Okay, so who else are you seeing for Minnesota that looks like a likely fit for those guys?
Oh, and based on the moves since last week, I now have Pittsburgh at having almost 7 million in cap space.
Well, maybe they can keep Bud Dupree.
But they have way too many fucking free agents to,
Yeah, they got a lot of needs now. Yeah.
yeah. So outside of those two, uh, I don't know. It's like it's hard for me for like DB and O line because I think if they get an O line guy, it's going to be outside of the top 101. Maybe Villanueva or on like a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Villanueva, you can get him at the right price. Beecham, you can probably get him at the right price, and you're going to get good value for both those guys, in my opinion. All right, well, hey, let's move it on.
Maybe Janoris Jenkins.
Oh, I don't think Zimmer would go with a guy that's that risky. Zimmer's, man, he's like so particular about his defensive backs. Like if you don't play freaking flawless, he puts you on the bench, man. And Jenkins, I mean, it's just my opinion. Jenkins takes too
Yeah.
many chances. I'd love to see the Lions go and grab Janoris Jenkins. I like him.
Yeah, because like if we're forgot because the top 101's not our list isn't updated for like all these
All the
veteran
tags.
cuts. Yeah,
Yeah.
all
Oh,
no
yeah, and the cuts. Yeah, yeah,
all the cuts.
yeah. Hey, you can
But
throw out
that's a good
whatever
point
name you
about Zimmer.
want. I'm just working off the top 101, but we can use any name we want to use. Okay, so next up we got the New Orleans Saints, and hey man, they've been working their freaking wizard magic. They're just a little over 10.9 million over the cap, so right about 11 million over. Which, hey, maybe there's a chance they hang on to Jameis Winston. That's their top target, right?
Yeah, Jameis Winston is clearly their top target. He's Peyton loves him from what I've heard. What I've heard when I hear Peyton talk about him, he talks more glowingly about him than you talk about your wife.
Okay,
Like
well, thanks
like
thanks for
he's
going there. Thanks for going there. Yeah.
no. It's not like a knock. It's like Peyton talks about him like it's been a while for both of us, but you remember that feeling when you first start dating someone new and it's like they're like the best and blah blah
Oh
blah.
yeah, just full
It's
infatuation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like after a while it's not new, it's not fresh, so you're not bragging about it all the time, and it's just that there's something about how he talks about him that they're gonna find a way to make it fit for him to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to hang on to him. And honestly, I didn't even put another name down for the Saints because I think they'll get him, and I don't see them going after another top free agent because they still got work to do. They're 11 million over.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else there you want to talk about, or moving on?
No, it's just Jameis. They got whatever they do, they need a quarterback.
Yeah, just get him. Okay, so next up, I got the New York Giants, and looking at their cap space, they got about 3.1 million. Not a whole lot to work with. That kind of hamstrings them a little bit, but they did franchise tag Leonard Williams. I think that was a smart move. I've got their needs as offensive line, and defensive back. You could basically knock out the defensive line by hanging on to Leonard Williams. I mean, yeah, they could use more help, but that helps. Um, Offensive line, when you only got 3.1 million, you're not looking at one of these top 100 guys, no way. And then defensive back, you're looking at a value name. And so, there's guys, it's take your pick, whether you're looking at, Quentin Dunbar, Troy Hill, you know, I, I don't really know where else you go from there. I mean, you could be, what happened with Malik Hooker? Did Indy let him go? And even then, Malik Hooker, I don't know. I think he might get more than that. So and you're just talking one guy. They got to spread that 3.1 million out over a few pieces, I'm sure. So
Yeah, it's hard to see them. Well, for offensive line, the way so Gettleman seems to be in love with Soldier and who's the
yeah,
other guy?
I thought I heard Solder. Something's going on with him. Like he's leaving, but maybe they're going to bring him back. I mean, I'll tell you, I like Will Hernandez. I mean, he's the
They,
beast of the offensive lineman they got. But
well, they just cut like other offensive linemen. Like it was like they cut Zietler.
oh yeah, yeah,
And then I don't know. Like I have no faith when it comes to GMs. Gutekunst and Gettleman are like the worst GMs in the league. Gutekunst because he never goes after that big name player. Gettleman because like let's talk about Gettleman for a second.
sure.
I'm gonna go on a little rant here.
The floor is yours.
So he had the absolute worst press conference this week.
Okay, tell me about it.
He was talking about how Daniel Jones is the
Oh
guy
yeah,
and he's
oh
going to
yeah,
be a great
yeah.
quarterback. And then he starts saying, well, how many of you guys were great at your job 2 years in? It's like I can name off the top of my head like six quarterbacks within 2 years. I knew that they were going to be the guy. I knew that they
Yeah,
were great.
yeah.
Like fucking Patrick Mahomes, fucking Tom
Watson,
Brady,
Herbert.
Aaron Rodgers. He was
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
bench.
yeah.
Watson, um, fucking Herbert.
Yeah.
I've been high on Josh Allen for how
Kyler
long?
Murray.
Russell
Yeah.
Wilson, Kyler
Yep.
Murray. Like what the fuck are you smoking? Not expecting the quarterback to be good. If by year two he's not lighting up the fucking league, you need to move on. You need to get a new goddamn quarterback.
Yeah, and so I can't speak for the guy. I don't know what's going on in his brain, but all I can imagine is that he's looking at his cap space, he's looking at his team, and he's saying, this guy's our best option. And so instead of dogging him, I'm going to pump him up, make him feel good, and hopefully he does okay. And then we can figure things out a year from now.
Okay, you want cap space. Let's take a look. Um, that's weird. Their highest paid player is Leonard Williams.
Yeah, they just tagged him. Yeah.
I know. I just, but like, let's see. How do you get cap space? Oh, let's not draft a fucking running back in the at the number four pick and pay $11 million a year to a running back,
Saquon. Yeah.
or let's have
You're digging too deep, man.
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, let's
Evan
just
Ingram
hey,
can't catch the fucking ball.
yeah, I mean, look, they gotta, if they want to get aggressive, yeah, they got some guys they can cut and some things they can do, but I think at this point of the game, they're going to be quiet in free agency. They're going to bring back as many guys as they can, and they're going to hope that everybody just kind of organically gets better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I'm just saying Gettleman's a terrible GM.
Yeah, you're saying F Gettleman.
Like he when he was hired by the Giants, the only reason he was hired was because he used to work for them and he was going to manage Eli Manning's feelings
Hmm.
and not upset Eli Manning. Nobody wanted him as an assistant GM when he was fired from Carolina.
Okay, we're beating a dead horse. Time to move on,
Yes.
James.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
ne- Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, and hey, they've been bridging the gap. They were over 40 million over on cap space, and now they're about eight and a half, 8.6 million over on the cap, and so they're getting there. It still makes it hard for them to do much. Breaking down their needs, I got them sitting at linebacker, defensive back, and wide receiver. Based on their cap situation, they're looking at value names no matter what they do. In the one name that I had listed, which I don't know if he's even on the market anymore, there's been so much happen this week, but I had safety Malik Hooker going to Philly. I think he would fit what they need in the defensive backfield. And he's 92 on the top 101. So maybe they can get creative and find a way to squeeze him in. But other than that, I think they're hard pressed to get any of these guys off this list, man.
Let me see. Did he sign? I'm not seeing.
And for some reason, I thought maybe he was sticking around in Indy, but maybe not.
If the price is right.
Yeah, no, maybe not, maybe not. Yeah, so it looks like he's still hanging out there. So he could be
Yeah.
feasible for Philly. You know, let's see what
The
happens.
problem the problem is is I don't know. I don't even know how the fuck they get under the cap.
Oh, you
That
think they've
like
exhausted all their options? Well, they got to restructure a couple more guys and do some things, but yeah.
I mean seriously like to get under the cap they have to like cut Ertz and restructure somebody.
Yeah, I mean, we got to expect Ertz is going to be gone. But this could be one of those deals with Philly where it's like, okay, you're passing the torch off to Hertz from Wentz, and you're tight on cap, and so you can't do anything crazy this year. It's kind of like Let's see what Hurts can do. And then going into the next year, our cap clears up a little bit. Hopefully, we found a gem in the draft, and everything's looking up then for 2022. This is kind of like a wait and see year for Philly, if you would call it that.
So depending on what the cap number is next year, projected just looking at Spotrack's projections for what the cap will be next year. 200 and 200 million.
Yep. Yeah,
No, 209 million.
it's gonna have a huge
So
jump. Yeah.
so they would have 8 million next year. But they have to get under the cap this year.
Yep.
It's and I I don't think they can go after any of these big name guys to with their cap situation.
Let's lock it off then. We got Malik Hooker out there. We threw out a name. We gave them the needs. If they can do something cool, if they can't, hey. Okay, so next up we got the San Francisco 49ers. And let's see, cap wise, the 49ers, you mentioned it earlier, they got some space. I'm looking at 24.4 million. And I got their big needs at left tackle, cornerback, and like it or not, I'm putting quarterback on here. I'm just not sold on Jimmy G. I don't like him. Left tackle, you know, they should not be letting Trent Williams go. And you think maybe they'll hang on to him. So maybe that locks in that spot. At cornerback, I put on here Ronald Darby. I think he's a steady, solid cornerback. I think they should hang on to Jason Verrett. Looks like he's going to be gone. And then I didn't plug anybody in at quarterback. I just don't know, what's going on with Jimmy G. I can't really like put a guy in on that situation. But those were some of my thoughts, man. What are you thinking with San Fran?
So indications are with San Francisco that they're going to roll with Jimmy G another year.
Yeah.
Um, it's they did some inquiries about other guys, but like nothing seemed to be a good fit for them. I believe, yeah. So after this year, they can get rid of Jimmy G for
Yeah, I thought
yeah.
it opened up. It was more
It's
reasonable.
it's 1.44 million. I mean, it's less than 3 million now. A couple players, I think it's ridiculous if they let Trent Williams go. It's absolutely absurd, and Lynch needs his head examined if they do. A player outside of that, a player I could see them going after is Shaq Barrett.
Damn, that would be that would be impressive if they got Shaq Barrett.
I mean, Shaq Barrett, he's number first and foremost, he's looking to be paid.
Yeah.
And if they can't re-sign Trent Williams, I could see them that being their splash and just like make like this dominant defensive front.
Yeah. I mean that's like right up their alley, man. I think that would be a good way to go. I had not thought of that. All right, you got anybody else for them?
Outside of those, I don't have anyone else that I could really match with them. Like I don't really like a lot of the cornerbacks because the corners that are available right now, I don't see many of them as number one corners.
Yeah, you just need solid contributors, I think, if you're the 49ers and you're hoping that maybe you draft a guy that develops into the one, but you're not going to get the one out of free agency. There's no way.
Yeah.
But they rolled with Richard Sherman the last 2 years. He got him burned in the Super Bowl, and he basically didn't even play last year. So
Oh,
they
come
they
on. The
just
Super Bowl, the defense had nothing to do with that Super Bowl loss. If
well,
if Jimmy G can
no 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 no
fucking
no no. What
fucking
I'm talking about is very distinctly Richard Sherman got burned, and it. yeah, was that the straw that broke the camel's back? Probably not, but it didn't help. And so, yeah, no, that was all about Jimmy G not doing anything at the end of that game, man.
Yeah, overthrow. What was it? Emmanuel Sanders. Was it
Yeah,
Emmanuel Sanders?
yep, Emmanuel Sanders
Wide
wide
open,
open. Yeah,
overthrew him.
yeah, and he was
Um,
like freaking 2 for 100 in, pass attempts in the fourth quarter. So it just,
yeah.
didn't matter, man. He was thrown to empty space.
hmm
But okay, so so moving on. Seattle Seahawks, we got them up next, and looking at Spotrac, they're at 21.4 million in space. Honestly, that's a lot higher than I was expecting for Seattle. And so I've got their needs at offensive line. We heard Russell Wilson talk a lot about that. Cornerback and edge. Okay. Um, Despite that, my top target was KJ Wright, and I talked about it earlier. I just don't see them letting him go. He's been a stalwart on that defense. It would just be weird if he's on another team. Maybe it'll happen though, because that's the business side of things. Offensive line wise, I think their best bet is going after Alejandro Villanueva. I think he's going to give them the most bang for their buck. However, now seeing that they got more space than I originally thought, maybe they can break the bank a little bit, go after a bigger name guy. But then, yeah, I mean, at cornerback, you know, Shaquille Griffin, he's their guy already, and he's probably best off staying there. It's just a matter of do they want to stick with him or do they want to try one of these other guys? And that was just kind of my assessment, man. What are you seeing?
I like that. I can't believe. I don't see them honestly letting KJ Wright go. I don't see them letting Griffin go. I think they were kind of waiting for the cap to be announced before they really negotiated with these guys. So I I see them possibly eating up their cap on the dead cap hit from Wilson and Shaquille Griffin and KJ Wright.
Okay, okay. You're not going to let the Russell Wilson thing go. I got you.
No, he's being traded. I'm telling you.
I think he might be traded. I just don't see it to Chicago, but we'll see what happens. Anything can happen. You never know. Okay, so next up, then we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we talked about them a little bit already. Oh man, I'm showing them being over by 10.6 million. Which I mean, hey, they did just tag Godwin. They re-signed Levante David or extended him, however you want to put it. No, they re-signed him. He was due to be a free agent.
Mhm.
Um, I'm showing their big needs. I had wide receiver and linebacker, knocked both those off the list. The third need that I had was defensive lineman, which is Shaq Barrett leaving. But it's more than that. You got Sue's leaving. But basically you got to get somebody on that line. And what do you do now with the cap being tight for them? So, what are you thinking, man?
So I think this is one of those instances where the Spotrac is showing an inaccurate number
Okay.
because I had read somewhere that even though they re-signed him, the Levante David contract is another one of those fucking um void year
Yeah, 50
bullshit.
voidable years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I had read that his cap hit this year was like less than $3 million.
Mm,
Yeah, so it's they extended him to 2025 with 2023 to 2025 being voided.
okay.
So his yeah, so I had read that his cap hit was somewhere around like $3 million. Also, it's not showing the Tom Brady
Adjustment. Yeah.
adjustment, which I had heard that saved them $19 million.
Okay. So then they're back in the green. Uh, you know, let's just say they got some space. who do you think they go after? You think they bring back Shaq Barrett? You think they look at some other guys? What are you thinking, man?
All right. They won the Super Bowl because of Shaq Barrett.
Yeah.
You want to win the Super Bowl again, you do what it takes to keep him. Amongst the other players that you need to keep, but Shaq Barrett should be their number one priority. I can't put, because I have them a little bit too close to the cap. Like I have, within like, there's probably like a 20 million swing somewhere in here. So they might have 10 million available. They might be 10 million over.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But Shaq Barrett should be that number one,
If they can get him,
number
yeah.
one target.
Yeah. And I mean, I talked about it last week that I didn't think they could keep all three of them. And they've already locked down Godwin and David. I don't think Barrett can stay, but if they could pull it off, that'd be awesome. And I agree with you. You want to keep that core intact if you want to go back and make another run at the Super Bowl. And somehow they got to get Gronk back. And maybe, well, I guess maybe Antonio Brown, they don't need him if they're hanging on to Godwin. But yeah, I mean, hey, it's interesting, Super Bowl winner. And
Yeah. So
and they're already
here,
hanging on to a lot of guys, man.
here's I found the quote. So David's contract includes voidable years. He'll count only 3.5 million against the salary cap in 2021, despite playing on a 2-year deal worth 25 million.
Yeah. It's jacked
And
up.
so before Brady restructured today, I'm looking for the savings on it, but basically they had it. Yes, so Brady to Tampa Bay, blah blah blah. The move saves the Buccaneers 19 million against the salary cap this year. Sources said.
Okay. Yeah, so they're in the green again. They got some space to play with.
Yeah. So they have a lot of space to play with, and I mean they should do what it takes to keep Shaq Barrett.
Shaq Barrett. I got you. Okay, well, hey, moving on. We got last but not least the Washington football team, who is apparently sticking with that name for one more year. I don't know why they couldn't make a decision and move on. You told me some guy locked up all the rights to all the good names, but
Yeah.
that's a whole secondary thing. But yeah, all right, you can get into that. Yeah.
I'm still reading that they've selected a name, but they're dealing with the trademark copyright issues to be able to use that name.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll come back to that when the time is right. But I was showing that they had significant space, 39.3 million, and I had their needs at quarterback, cornerback, and wide receiver. And despite all that, I had Brandon Scherf as their top target, which they've tagged. So I'm glad they did that. But honestly, man, the pick that I want for them is Ryan Fitzpatrick. And, they're not going to roll it back with Alex Smith. Just get a solid veteran, man, because the defense is solid. They've got weapons on offense. Like if you could bring in a guy like Fitzpatrick on a one year deal, whatever you want to do, you can go out and draft a guy. And like I just feel like that's the right trajectory for this team, is that they can be competitive this year while they groom a guy. And who knows, man, Fitzmagic might make something happen.
So what I'm reading about Fitzpatrick is he's going to retire.
Oh man. Okay, Andy Dalton it is.
I was thinking Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I guess if he gets away from New Orleans, I'd like to see Winston go there. I'd be good with
Yeah.
that.
The other target I had, I think, imagine this offense. I don't care who the quarterback is, but McLaurin on one side
Yeah.
and Will Fuller on the other side. Will
Yeah.
Fuller seems to thrive as a number two. McLaurin can step into that number one. He proved a little bit last year that he can handle it.
Yeah.
And just you put Fuller on as the number two, and you have solid receivers for them to throw to, assuming Fuller gets through a year without PEDs or injuries.
Yeah, no, hey, I like that. I think that gives you a solid 1-2 punch at wide receiver. You just got to give him the right quarterback. And then at cornerback, same thing we've been saying all night, man. It's pick your poison. You got a lot of guys. You're not going to get a one, but there's plenty of twos hanging out there. And honestly, Jason Verrett is my favorite guy on the list. I mentioned earlier Michael Davis. He looks like a good value pick. And then if you're going to be drafting a young guy, pair him with a vet like Richard Sherman or Xavier Rhodes. Mike Hilton from the Steelers, man, I like him, but it's just you got to manage your expectations. None of these guys are going to come in and be a lockdown guy. So it's, you pick the guy that you think is going to be best for your scheme, and you got plenty of options to play with.
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to is who fits best in your scheme, who you look at. I do like Verrett. Outside of Verrett, they'd be, like best off keeping Darby.
Yeah, I think Darby did well for them. Hang on to him. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, like those would be the two for corner
Yeah.
backs that if I was Washington, probably would pick Darby over Verrett just because he's familiar with the defensive system there.
Get them both, man. Nothing wrong with doubling down, man. People get hurt.
True.
They got the cap space. If there's
They
some
do.
time to do it, you might as well do it. Okay, so that's it for free agency matchmaker. It was fun, James. It just means that we're gonna have to come up with a new topic for next week now. So I'm sad, but it's okay. Um, all right, so let's move on and let's hit our question of the week. So for this week, I was just the other day looking at one of Todd McShay's latest mock drafts, and he's got the Lions taking wide receiver Jamar Chase in the first round. Devonta Smith is the other top wide receiver who I've seen mocked to the Lions. It looks like because of all this, I mean, we have no wide receivers. We got Tyrell Williams. So it looks like we're going to be drafting a guy, is what everybody's thinking. Let's just say between these two guys, they may both be there. Neither one of them could be there. You never know. They're both very highly rated, but they both have a lot of question marks. Um, the question of the week is who do you like more and why? And when I look at this, because I want to give you time to think here, James, Jamar Chase, he's got the better size. He's 6 foot, 208 pounds. Devonta Smith, 6 foot, 170 pounds. That's pretty light for a potential wide receiver one. But, on the other side of it, Devonta Smith played this past year and lit it up, especially in the playoff, whereas Chase opted out, didn't play. And so you got to wonder, is he going to need some time to get back up to speed? ESPN's grading them both very high. Chase is a 94, Smith is a 93. I think at this point in time, if I'm looking for a wide receiver one, I'm probably giving the edge to Chase, but I am concerned about his year off. I think if you need a guy to come in and be a playmaker right off the bat, he might have to work off some rust. Smith might have the edge early on. I just worry about Smith's size, man. 170 pounds. You can get away with a lot in college football at that weight that you can't get away with in the NFL because cornerbacks are going to jam you at the line. They're going to fight you for the ball, and you got to have a little bit more size. And so, I think if we found a way to hang on to Galladay, like if we signed him to a reasonable deal, let's just say his market's not favorable, I'd be more comfortable with Chase because then he's got time to shake off that rust. But man, I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards Chase, but that's just my fast and furious assessment, man. What are you thinking?
Can I pick neither?
You can. Yeah. Is there another guy I mean, I'm going off of, if it's a wide receiver.
No, no,
Be,
no. I'm talking wide receiver. My ideal wide receiver to draft for the Lions is Jalen Waddle.
All right, tell me about it.
So he that motherfucker's fast. He's a deep threat. He's he's better. He's bigger than Devonta Smith. I don't think number one. I also don't think Devonta Smith's going to fall to us because if he's not going to get past Miami if Miami doesn't trade that pick.
Okay.
Um, Jamar Chase, I agree with you. I'm concerned about the year off. It doesn't concern me as much as as Smith's size.
Yeah.
Um, but I Waddle is I mean that's he can catch the ball. He's fast. He's that playmaker wide receiver that I think would go well with Goff's with Goff as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
QB.
And I'm actually trying to look it up real quick here because I know Waddle was rated pretty highly as well. I want to say he was like right around a 90 or so. Let me just take a peek here. Um, and so it's not out of the question, man. It's not out of the question. Let's see. Waddle's got a 92 rating or 92 grade on him. But see, he's not that big either. 5'10", 177. So it's,
For
I'm
some
just
reason, I thought he was bigger.
I'm just hesitant to take a guy of that size to be my number one. Like I guess if you got, some bigger guys on the outside and he's like your number one in the slot, like you're running everything out of the slot, which a lot of teams do. That's not the end of the world. I'm just worried because it's so much more physical in the NFL. And those smaller guys, you got to be strong as hell or they're going to jam you, they're going to manhandle you, and it's going to be hard for you to have that same kind of production that you had at the college level.
Yeah, and that makes sense. For some reason, I thought Waddle was bigger than that.
Yeah, that's what I was just showing on ESPN, man. All right, so for anybody who's still watching, that's our question of the week. Similar to Name That Stadium, if you have an opinion on this, we'd love to hear it. Hit us up in the comments section. We will respond. We want to get some interaction going here. Basically that's our A to Z for tonight's show. James, you got any final thoughts, man? Or are you just digging away trying to find Waddles?
No, I'll believe you. I just for some reason thought he was bigger than that. Outside of that, no, I don't have. Oh, here's a good description of Waddle.
Sure, let's
A,
hear it.
a little Tyler Lockett, a little Tyreek Hill.
Ooh, that's a nice blend.
Yeah,
I mean, that's wide receiver one with the right quarterback. It can happen, yeah.
outside of that, no other real final thoughts besides the sadness that the Lions are going to have to go up against Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins,
Uh-huh.
and Russell Wilson in their division next year
Okay, okay.
or this year, this
Ti
coming season.
Time will tell. Time will tell. But hey, this weekend we got to come up with some ideas for next week's show. So let's do some brainstorming. There is plenty to consider. I'll
We could
send you.
always just break down the Russell Wilson trade.
Well, that'll be part of the news of the week if it happens, James. If it happens. Okay, well, cool. All right, so that was fun. Anybody who's still watching, thank you. We appreciate your support. If you like the show, give us that thumbs up. If you really like the show, hit the subscribe button. But whether you liked us or hated us or whatever, hit us up with some comments. Let us know what you think. And that's all for tonight. So, James, I will catch you later, my man.
All right, sounds good.
All right, see ya.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.